The Edmonton Oilers refused to match the St. Louis Blues' offer sheets to Broberg and Holloway.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things St. Louis Blues. What an exciting day it is to be a fan of the St. Louis Blues, because not only did Edmonton refuse to match the St. Louis Blues' offer sheets to Dylan Holloway and Phillip Broberg, now the Blues have two very valuable players on the team. On today's episode, I will talk about the offer sheets. I'm also going to talk to you about what Broberg and Holloway both said in their media availability. And yes, Doug Armstrong just spoke to the media as well. And I will tell you all things that he said, including something that I found really interesting about his friend, Ken Holland. We have a lot that we're going to talk about in today's episode, but make sure to subscribe to Locked On Blues here on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast to stay up to date on all the latest St. Louis Blues information. So let's go talk about what exactly happened. So the St. Louis Blues signed defenseman Phillip Broberg and forward Dylan Holloway to a 2-year contracts this morning after the Oilers declined to match the offer sheets for the restricted free agents. The news broke around 7:30 this morning, which is no surprise. It went public last Tuesday around 7 a.m. Eastern time. Obviously, you do the math for your time zone. So let's go talk about what this means. Broberg signed for a total of $9.16 million. That is a lot of money. And Holloway signed for $4.58 million. Significantly less, but for 2 years, I'm not going to complain from the St. Louis Blues side of things. These are two very strong players who I expect to really help the St. Louis Blues team. You know, Broberg is going to play a huge role with the Blues' blue line. And of course, you cannot forget about Dylan Holloway. Most importantly and most impressively, there was a game against the Canucks earlier in the Stanley Cup playoffs where he had this beauty of a goal, and he really did expand his playing ability during the playoffs. So I feel like he is going to just continue to improve. These are also two players, and I just want to remind you that were first round draft picks, which is actually insane. The St. Louis Blues, they now have, 12 players who were drafted in the first round under the age of 25. I mean, I'm 25 myself, so that makes me feel a little bit old. But the young core that is going to be playing with the St. Louis Blues over the course of the next couple of seasons is huge. It's expanded, and I am very excited about what is about to happen. Broberg stepped up significantly in the Stanley Cup Finals, and honestly, he was looking to be a third pair defenseman for the Oilers this season. So to all the Edmonton fans and people that are saying, we really didn't lose much, there was a lot put on to Phillip Broberg that you are going to miss. And I know Nurse's contract sucks for Edmonton fans, and I feel for Edmonton fans on that one, but the money just was not there to match the offer that the St. Louis Blues made. And even more detail about that, I will say that, there is something significant that I will get into about the money aspect. Holloway, by the way, was one of the most reliable forwards during the playoff time. He was a third line player. And this season, you could expect to see him pushing for second line minutes with the Oilers. So obviously, with the Oilers and all the star power that they have on their team, and again, they do have some of the best players in the NHL, and I am not taking that away from them. They're losing a very valuable player, okay? But here is the most significant problem. The Oilers could not match with their cap situation, and they wouldn't have really any flexibility this season. And again, we all know about Evander Kane. Like him or hate him, he does have value. So when he is ready to come back into the lineup, they would have to move a lot around. And honestly, they would have a hard time with trades because they wouldn't have any money. So you're probably thinking, Hale, couldn't they just sign one of the two players? Well, the problem is even though Holloway's offer sheet wasn't as much as Broberg's, it would still put the Oilers in a bad situation, which is why you saw Edmonton make some of the moves that they made. I find the whole thing really interesting, right? Because from a St. Louis Blues perspective, it's a no-brainer for, us to look at the Oilers and say, you couldn't match this because again, their cap situation is not good. But there was a part of me, and I was on this podcast, I was very honest about it, where I really thought they would be able to match Holloway at least. But we saw some of the moves they made this weekend. And, I feel like at the end of the day, they're still going to lose, value with these two players, but they just could not afford to do it. And I think that would hurt their team in the long run compared to what it's done now. It's still a major blow, and there is no denying that whatsoever. Okay. The Oilers, they did enter negotiation with Broberg before the offer sheets at 2 years for 1.1 million, according to Broberg's agents. And another significant thing that Broberg's agent did say is that there was other teams that did express interest in an offer sheet. I know that was a lot of information I threw at you. Again, today's episode is going to be jam-packed with different things, but I just want to take a couple minutes to kind of digest, right, all the things that I said. One, I am actually really surprised about how little money Edmonton was kind of willing to pay for Broberg, considering the Blues got him for 2 years over 9 million, and for 2 years they were willing to pay him 1.1 million. I thought that was a little weird and significantly low. I was not expecting that one. I thought at least a couple million. But when that news came out, TSN reported that. I always want to give credit to where credit is due. I was like, wow, no wonder they didn't really match him. Now, again, I don't know what happened behind the scenes. I don't know what the Oilers front office was thinking during this last week. And again, I will get into what the players said, but even based on what they said, it seems like they heard absolutely nothing. So, again, there is no confirmation or anything on that if Edmonton was even considering matching any of the players. I think that in an Edmonton standpoint and viewpoint, it's actually kind of smart that they went silent because they did make some moves, as I mentioned, over this past week. Again, I'm not an Edmonton podcast, but I can respect the fact that they did make some moves while, everyone is kind of looking at them. What are they going to do? And at least they did something. Now, from a Blues standpoint, when I was hearing nothing, that to me was an indication that, hey, you know what? Edmonton, they may not match these guys at all because I feel like if they were to match, there would be, rumors and speculation. People talk, agents talk. That's just the name of the game, not even just in hockey, but in all sports. So the more silence that kind of went around the National Hockey League during this time period, the more I thought, hey, this is looking good for the St. Louis Blues. I know yesterday there was multitude of reports that both of Broberg and Holloway's names were removed from the Oilers website. So again, another indication, but until something is confirmed, I'm just going to wait it out and see what actually is to be said. But going back to the Oilers, cap situation, it is interesting that TSN did report that even matching one of the offer sheets would have put them in the same situation if they were able to match both, which really goes to show that this team is not in a good situation. They have some of the best players and I've mentioned this, and I'm going to give it all the respect in the world because I respect Draisaitl. Obviously, McDavid, I respect. There are so many great players on that team. I just am really surprised to hear that because I feel like a lot of hockey fans thought at least Dylan Holloway would have been a consideration for him to be matched because his, again, was significantly lower than Broberg's. Again, Holloway is still a great player, and that doesn't take away from him. Where Broberg obviously got a huge offer sheets. And the point of offer sheets, by the way, it is for the other team not to be able to match them. What the Blues did was really smart. The Blues have the money too, by the way. So I know I saw a couple comments saying, the Blues can't afford to do this. Yes, they can. A lot more so than Edmonton. So for St. Louis, I would give this honestly an A. I know offer sheets are very rare. I think since 1998. I might be a little bit wrong on the number. I believe that these are the 11th and 12th offer sheets that went out. Like something crazy like that. Like it's a very rare in the NHL to get this. So it calls for some really interesting talk. But you know what's really interesting to me, at least? It is what the two new St. Louis Blues players had to say. Yes, Phillip Broberg and Dylan Holloway both spoke to the media today. And I have to tell you, I think I went from being excited to super excited about what these two players are going to bring to the St. Louis Blues this upcoming season. But first, I want to tell you about my friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash, with all the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. So, yes, I did mention that Phillip Broberg and Dylan Holloway spoke to the media today, and it was some really interesting things that were said between the two new St. Louis Blues players, which sounds super cool to say as a Blues fan myself. So let's get into what the new Blues players had to say. That is never going to get old. So, yes, the number came out that there was 3 offer sheets. And basically, the question was asked to Phillip Broberg why he was excited to be a St. Louis Blue and why he accepted it. Basically, Broberg, the Swedish native himself, said, I'm very excited to be a Blue. It's been wild. He's referring to this past week. I'm very excited to be a Blue, meaning everybody's staff, teammates, and just overall excited. It was brought up, about maybe being a little bit anxious, waiting on the news and what was going on. He said, not much to focus on. You can only focus on the stuff, everyday stuff like working out, getting ready for the season. And when I found out that I was going to be in St. Louis, I was very excited. So again, there is no doubt that with Edmonton, there were a lot of talented players. So this again presents for Broberg to have more opportunity. And he said, I'm going to try to get there every day in practice. I'm looking forward to the opportunity in St. Louis, and I'm looking forward to camp. I'm excited to have Broberg at camp, obviously, and excited to see what he does with the Blues players. Broberg also went on to say, everything I heard about the organization are positive and good. I'm a Blue, and I'm looking forward to it. So Broberg, and this is not a drinking game, and I love his enthusiasm, but the amount of time that he said, I'm a Blue, or I'm excited, I'm a Blue, honestly, it was very, sentimental and sweet, and I thought it was really wholesome. I think for him, he's just processing this whole thing too, since it's so bizarre. This is so crazy. I mean, a double offer sheets to 2 players on the same team. Okay. Anyways, back to what Broberg was saying. So he did talk about the playoffs. Obviously, the Edmonton Oilers lost in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. And he said it was very fun, and I tried to help the team. I tried to get better every day. I took a step there in the playoffs, and I want to continue that to next year. And obviously, what I was saying with his expectations with the Oilers, right? How he was kind of projected to be, that third pair defenseman. In the playoffs, both of these players truly did step up. We know Edmonton had problems with their defense, with some players, with injury and whatnot. But, we really did see Broberg step up tremendously. And if he can grow from that, then you're going to get a really talented defenseman. So another question was asked to him. Obviously, he is Swedish, as I mentioned. But there is a Swedish influence when it comes to the St. Louis Blues, especially Alexander Steen, who is going to be the future GM of the St. Louis Blues in a couple of seasons. And Broberg said that he was aware of it and he knows some of the guys that played here in St. Louis and they seem like very good people and they really did like their time here in St. Louis. I think that it's a huge benefit to have your future GM, you know, have something that he can relate to Broberg about. I mean, obviously, Steen has seen Broberg play numerous times, well, a lot of times, if we're being honest. And I do believe that, you know, him being scouted, right? Um, by Steen just makes me feel more comfortable because of how much I do trust Steen and what he is going to do for the St. Louis Blues' organization and what he's already done for this Blues' organization. I mean, there are so many good things I can say about Steen, and Steen could have a whole episode about him, which I've kind of done already, but I would be happy to do one again. And I'm just really happy that that was brought up. So, what should you know about Broberg? And this is what he wants the fans to know, that he is a good skater and that he likes to use his skating in defending and joining the rush. Okay. He likes to play with pace and help the team in any way he can. I love the fact that Broberg is so about the team. Okay. He wants to help the team do well and he's willing to do absolutely anything to get them to be the most successful on ice. So he had no idea really heading into this offseason that anything like this could have happened. He said, I guess you never know. I'm excited to be in St. Louis. And that's how it is. I know that there is a viral meme going around the internet right now with the Oilers locker room after, you know, they lost the cup or whatever. And they said, you know, we want all these guys to be here next year. And obviously that didn't happen. But there is always the possibility that players can be moved, especially in RFA. So again, he seemed to have, you know, high spirits about coming here to St. Louis. Of course, that question about Dylan Holloway had to be asked. And Broberg said, he's a great guy, and I've known him for a while now. He's a very good player. A lot of good things to say about him. I'm very happy for Dylan. And he says, I also have nothing bad to say about the fans at Edmonton as a whole, the teammates, nothing. I am very happy about my time in Edmonton. And he did talk to a few teammates to say goodbye, nothing bad at all. He said that I'll see them in some other type of way. I feel like the amount of respect that, you know, Phillip Broberg does have for the Oilers and Oil Nation. And again, I feel for the fans. I do. Even though some of you came at me, I do feel for the fans. He has spoke in such high respect of them. And, you know, if you're an Oilers fan and you're upset about this whole situation, just know that, you know, both him and Holloway did mention this as well, which I'll get into, how much respect they both have for the Oilers fans and how I can even say this, you know, coming from a very passionate fan base myself, how great and how passionate hockey is in Edmonton. So he doesn't know exactly when he's coming to St. Louis yet. You know, this is still pretty new news for him, as he did kind of talk about. But he is expected to be here, obviously, for training camp. So I'm sure he'll come to St. Louis sooner than later. Let's go talk about Dylan Holloway. So Dylan started off his presser by saying, definitely kind of an emotional roller coaster of not knowing where you're going to end up. But he is excited to join the Blues. Heard nothing but good things. And I want this to be a good opportunity. And I think this will be a good opportunity. Nothing bad about Edmonton. I will miss the guys. So obviously, you know, offer sheets are really rare in the NHL, as I stated. And he said there's so much that goes into it besides the numbers. People think I'm going to just take the better number for myself. We were trying to get a number with Edmonton, but it was pretty far off. And again, now what we heard about what they were offering Broberg, yes, I can agree with Holloway. I don't know the number that was offered to him, but obviously, if they were gonna pay Broberg, you know, that 1.1 million, probably was not gonna be really good for Holloway. With St. Louis, I was able to talk to Doug Armstrong before I signed, and he gave me the vision of where St. Louis is going with the team, their goals, and having a young group. I wasn't sure, you know, what was going to happen with the offer sheet. I figured either way, it was going to be a good option for me. So that part to me really stood out, especially mentioned talking to Doug Armstrong. Obviously, both of these players did not have to sign the offer sheets. Totally up to them, their decision. But Doug Armstrong is such a good GM, and I have to give him the credit, he does deserve. So I did like that Holloway did mention that Doug did tell him the vision, was honest and open about the vision. And Holloway talked about the opportunity that he does have here in St. Louis. I definitely feel like I'm going to get some more opportunity in St. Louis. Edmonton has a lot of star power up front, which will be impossible to move those guys out of their spots. I think for me, it's a bittersweet pill to follow. I'm going to miss all the guys up there, but excited for St. Louis. And I have to agree with Holloway on that one. Again, no denying the star power that the Oilers do have. For Holloway, this will give him a lot better of an opportunity. I know I said third line. He could potentially be in the second line, depending. I think that this, again, is a step in his career that he didn't need to take if he wanted to get more playing minutes. He also talked about his communication with Broberg. I talked to him a bit before. It was a weird thing. The offer sheet thing doesn't happen often. I talked to him after I signed it. I said congratulations to him. Either way, he gets paid. We didn't hear anything this week until 7 a.m. this morning. It feels, better going somewhere with somebody I know and I feel close with. I also thought that was kind of interesting that he didn't really hear anything this week. I know earlier in today's episode I did say that, but I mean, I can't imagine what it's like for them not knowing exactly what's going to happen. He said, when the announcement was made, I did see the reaction. I knew it was coming out at 7:30 in the morning. He's kind of outside of Alberta, by the way. I was at the gym with a few of the guys, and a few of them did not understand it. It blew up, and it was the center of attention up here. I was getting a mixed reaction from fans on Instagram. And to me, it's so funny how, modern day technology does have an effect on players. But for him, he discredited to how passionate Edmonton fans really are about their hockey. And I'm sure that they didn't want to see him go. So it is what it is. He did talk about the playoffs, and he says, I think that it will help for sure. This playoff experience was incredible. We were 2 shots away from winning the Stanley Cup. It's a hard way to end the season, but we were very proud of ourselves of how we played. Playing in those big games helped with confidence, and I'm just trying to build off of that. So he kind of mimicked what Broberg said about their playoff experience. And again, I think that's just a testament to how strong this Edmonton team is and the fact that these two players were able to really shine. Again, just shows how strong they have been during the playoff run. And he kind of talked about when he talked to Armstrong again. I liked where his head was at. He wants to build a young core of guys and build up together. Again, I did mention that the Blues have the 12 first rounders under 25 years old. Again, huge. That's an incredible statistic, right? With a young core group of guys within the next couple of years, we could be a very good team. And I am excited to think about that. So there was a lot to take away from both of the guys when they spoke to us media today. But it's one of those things where you really have to ask yourself, were they going to get the same opportunity to grow in Edmonton? And I'm sure at some extent the answer is yes. They got very valuable playoff experience. But at 22 and 23 years old, I'm sure they're looking to get bigger numbers, with ice time. And in St. Louis, they can definitely achieve that. And that's for both of Broberg and Holloway. So that is what they had to say. But of course, I need to talk to you about what Doug Armstrong had to say, obviously. But before I do that, I want to tell you about my friends over at Indeed, okay? If you need a hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work, use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. One thing that I love about Indeed is that it is leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day. Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of Locked On Blues will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/locked on. Just go to Indeed.com/locked on right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hire? You need Indeed. Indeed, you do. So let's go talk about what the man of the hour, Dougie A, had to say. I got a lot of mixed reactions on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, about my excitement with Doug Armstrong. And all the negativity was, of course, the Edmonton fans that said, oh, this is going to blow up. Both of these players are going to be injury prone. Oh my goodness. What I take away from this, it is a GM who made a very smart move that is benefiting his team and organization, and I could not be more excited about this. And again, I want to give credit to where credit is due. Jeremy Rutherford was the one with the Armstrong quotes, and again, always want to credit my sources. So this was what Armstrong had to say on the offer sheets to Edmonton. It was reported that I would not have done this to Kenny Holland. That's the furthest thing from the truth. Quite honestly, I'd do this to my mother if she was managing the Oilers. My job is to take care of the St. Louis Blues fans and organization. Oh my goodness. Quote of the day. I would do this to my mother if she was managing the Oilers. It doesn't get more real than that with Doug Armstrong. And again, nothing but complete agreement on that one. He made a decision that, was going to benefit his team. But I do want to talk about Ken Holland and, what he really did with the Oilers and why this is so significant. So Kenny was hired in 2019 and made Broberg his first draft choice, 8th overall. And just to give you a little bit of a heads up about that 2019 draft, Trevor Zegras and Cole Caulfield were still available. So I remember that draft, very distinctively, and a lot of people had mixed reactions on that one. But the Oilers were getting a really talented defenseman that was able to skate really well at a 6'3" frame and can operate tremendously on the power play. Dylan Holloway, of course, he was another first rounder, 14th overall in the 2020 NHL draft coming out of the University of Wisconsin. And again, the thing about Dylan Holloway is his power and his shooting ability, which we really did see in this playoffs, where they did lose in the finals, unfortunately, for the Edmonton fans. I was happy because of my boy, Vladimir Tarasenko. Armstrong also said, if there is a GM code not to do offer sheets, no one emailed it to me. Mic drop. Oh, man. How can you not love Doug Armstrong and his complete honesty about this? My biggest takeaway from Doug Armstrong, he knew what he was doing. He did not care if people didn't like it. He knew that he wanted to better the St. Louis Blues' organization and the team overall. And I think, even him saying, if my mother was managing the Oilers, I would do this to her, just goes to show that no matter the friendships you build or anything like that, at the end of the day, it's business. And at the end of the day, the St. Louis Blues are the number one priority to Doug Armstrong. So I did find those quotes very funny. Again, I know Doug said a lot more than that, and I can discuss that on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Blues. But it was some of those quotes that just made me kind of chuckle to myself. I'm like, this is the type of guy that Doug Armstrong is. He cares about the St. Louis Blues, and he's going to do what he needs to do, whether you like it or not. I know that there has been mixed reaction towards Doug Armstrong within the past couple of years of very silent off seasons. Not this one. I'm talking about last season. And of course, the trade deadlines. And I think that this just goes to show that he is not afraid to make those risky moves. A double offer sheet to two players on the same team. You're not going to hear that much again anytime soon. So I just want to commend Doug Armstrong and the great work that he has done for the St. Louis Blues. This was not a boring offseason for St. Louis. I thought it was going to be a little bit boring. This is not boring. The Blues walk away. Yeah, I'm going to admit, still overpaying Broberg and even Holloway a little bit. But again, it's 2 years. Great players. I mean, you get 2 first-round draft picks, and you're giving away a second round and a third round draft pick. Are you kidding me? Like, that's a no-brainer. So, fun episode today. I will be answering all of your questions later on this week. I know I'm getting a lot on Twitter at Locked On Blues, my personal Instagram at Haley T. Simon, which is also the same username for my Twitter. Let me know down below. Was this a good move or a bad move that Doug Armstrong made for the St. Louis Blues with the double offer sheet to Phillip Broberg and Dylan Holloway? I will talk to you on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Blues, and how I end every single episode. Let's go Blues.